Lisa Morgan wiped the salt spray from her glasses and checked the sonar readings one more time. The numbers didn't make sense. Something massive was moving beneath them, deeper than anything should be able to survive in the Mariana Trench. She had been studying the ocean for 12 years, and nothing in her experience could explain what she was seeing. "Jake, come look at this," she called to her research partner. Jake Rodriguez hurried over from where he had been calibrating the water sampling equipment. His dark eyes widened as he saw the display. "That's impossible," he whispered. "Nothing. The big lives down there, the pressure would crush anything." Lisa nodded, but her military training from her Navy days made her check the emergency protocols. Something felt wrong. The ocean was too quiet, and the dolphins that usually followed their research vessel had disappeared an hour ago. Animals could sense danger before humans could. Amy Collins, their marine photographer, emerged from the cabin with her camera equipment. "Did you guys see that light? It was coming up from the deep water, really bright and blue." Before anyone could answer, the ocean around them began to glow. The water turned an unnatural shade of electric blue, and waves started forming in a perfect circle around their small ship. Lisa grabbed the radio immediately. "Coast Guard, this is Ocean Pioneer. We have an emergency situation at coordinates." The radio went dead. All their electronic equipment shut down at once. The engines stopped working, and even the simple compass began spinning wildly. Lisa felt her heart rate increase, but she forced herself to stay calm. Panic killed more people than actual danger ever did. "Everyone put on life jackets now," she ordered. Her voice was steady, but Jake and Amy could hear the authority she had learned during her time as a combat medic. They moved quickly. The water beneath them exploded upward. A massive shape rose from the depths, larger than any submarine or whale. Its surface was smooth and metallic, covered in lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. Lisa realized they were looking at some kind of ship, but it was nothing like any human technology she had ever seen. "Alien," Amy whispered, taking pictures rapidly. "This is actually happening." Lisa was already moving, checking their emergency equipment and calculating their chances. The life rafts were ready, the flare gun was loaded, and she had enough medical supplies to keep them alive for several days if they had to abandon ship. Her mind worked through possibilities and backup plans, the way it always did in crisis situations. The alien ship was now completely above water, floating without any visible means of support. It was at least 4 times larger than their research vessel. Strange symbols glowed along its hull, and Lisa could see what looked like windows or observation decks. A beam of light shot down from the alien ship and scanned their vessel. Lisa felt a strange tingling sensation as the light passed over her. She noticed that the aliens seemed to focus the beam on her longer than on Jake or Amy. That worried her. "We need to get to the life rafts," she said quietly. Something about, "This doesn't feel like a friendly first contact." But before they could move, more beams of light appeared. These were different from the scanning beam. They were solid and grabbed onto their ship like invisible ropes. Lisa felt the Ocean Pioneer being pulled upward toward the alien vessel. "Cut the engine," she shouted, though the engine was already dead. "Jake, help me with the emergency beacon. Amy, keep documenting everything. If we don't make it back, people need to know what happened here." Lisa's hands moved quickly over the emergency equipment. She activated 3 different distress beacons and set the ship's black box to transmit continuously. Her medical training had taught her to prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. The aliens lifted their entire ship into what appeared to be a docking bay inside the larger vessel. Lisa could see other ships in there, some that looked human-made. That made her stomach tighten with worry. How long had these aliens been taking people? Strange creatures appeared around their ship. They walked on 2 legs like humans, but were taller and thinner. Their skin was gray-white and seemed to shimmer. They had large dark eyes and no visible mouth or nose. Lisa noticed they moved with purpose and organization like a well-trained military unit. "Stay close together," Lisa whispered to her team. "Don't resist unless they try to separate us. We need to learn what they want before we can figure out how to get home." The aliens used some kind of tool to create an opening in the side of their ship. They stepped aboard without any concern for human weapons or defenses. Lisa realized that to them, Humans were probably as threatening as insects. One of the aliens approached Lisa specifically. It held a device that beeped and flashed when pointed at her. The alien seemed excited about whatever the device was telling it. Lisa didn't like the attention. The alien communicated with the others using sounds that weren't quite words. Lisa watched carefully, trying to understand their body language and organization. She counted 6 aliens total, all wearing the same type of fitted uniform. They moved like scientists or researchers, not soldiers. After several minutes of scanning and discussion, the aliens made their intentions clear. They wanted Lisa to come with them. When Jake stepped forward to protect her, one of the aliens pointed a device at him that made him freeze in place, unable to move but still conscious and aware. "It's okay," Lisa told Amy, who was crying now. "I'll figure this out. Keep recording everything. Tell people what you saw here." Lisa had survived medical emergencies, combat situations, and natural disasters. She had pulled people out of burning buildings and performed surgery in battlefield conditions. Whatever these aliens wanted, she would find a way to deal with it and get back home. The aliens escorted her off the Ocean Pioneer toward what looked like the interior of their ship. Lisa memorized every detail she could see. The walls had a strange texture. The lights pulsed in patterns, and the air smelled like ozone after a lightning strike. As they led her deeper into the alien vessel, Lisa could hear Amy calling her name, and the sound of their ship's engines starting up again. The aliens were letting Jake and Amy go. That was either a good sign or a very bad one. Lisa Morgan had no idea that her unusual genetics, her military training, and her stubborn refusal to give up would soon cause the biggest disaster in alien research history. She just knew that whatever these creatures wanted from her, they were going to regret taking her away from her life and her friends. Lisa woke up in a room that looked like a hospital crossed with a spaceship. The walls were white and smooth, glowing softly from within. Strange symbols moved across display screens, and the air hummed with the sound of advanced machinery. She was lying on a table that felt warm and seemed to adjust to her body shape automatically. Her head hurt, but she was thinking clearly. Lisa quickly checked herself for injuries and found none. The aliens had been careful with her, which meant they needed her alive and healthy. That gave her some advantage, though she wasn't sure what yet. A door opened with a soft hissing sound and 3 aliens entered. Lisa recognized one of them from the ship. This one seemed to be in charge, based on how the others deferred to it. Lisa decided to call it the leader in her mind. The leader approached her table and spoke in a voice that sounded like wind chimes mixed with electronic beeps. Somehow Lisa understood the words, though she wasn't sure how. "Human Lisa Morgan," the leader said, "you have been selected for the Genesis Project. Your genetic structure contains properties we require for our species' survival." Lisa sat up slowly, testing whether they would try to restrain her. They didn't. "What do you mean, selected? Who are you people, and what do you want with me?" "We are Zephyrians," the leader replied. "I am Chief Scientist Vex 9. We have been studying your species for many cycles, searching for genetic material that might restore what we have lost." Another alien stepped forward. This one carried what looked like a medical scanner. "I am Prime Researcher Keth 7. Your DNA contains unusual markers. Enhanced healing, extreme stress tolerance, adaptive immunity. Most interesting." Lisa's mind raced. Her family had always been tough. Her grandmother used to joke that they were too stubborn to die. Lisa had survived things that should have killed her, bounced back from injuries faster than doctors expected, and generally seemed harder to break than most people. "Your species fascinates us," Vex 9 continued. "Most beings we encounter behave logically. When faced with impossible odds, they surrender or flee. Humans do neither. You fight against logic itself." The medical alien, Keth 7, began scanning Lisa with various devices. "Our species has evolved beyond such irrationality. We have perfect technology, unlimited lifespans, complete logical thinking. But we have lost something crucial." "What did you lose?" Lisa asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. "The will to continue," Vex 9 said simply. We cannot reproduce naturally anymore. Our emotions have been eliminated through genetic modification. We exist, but we do not truly live. We have studied many species, but none possess what humans have. Lisa looked around the laboratory more carefully. She could see tanks filled with strange creatures, screens showing genetic codes, and equipment that was clearly designed for biological research. This wasn't just a medical facility. It was a cloning laboratory. "You want to clone me?" she said. It wasn't a question. "We have attempted to clone many humans," Keth-7 admitted. "All attempts have failed. The clones lack the essential spark that makes humans unique. They die within days, empty shells without the drive to live." Lisa noticed something important. The aliens were explaining their entire plan to her, which meant either they were very confident she couldn't escape, or they needed her cooperation for something. Given what they had said about failed cloning attempts, she suspected they needed her to be conscious and aware during the process. "Your genetic markers are different from other humans we have studied," Vex-9 continued. "Your family line shows extreme survival characteristics spanning multiple generations. We believe you may be the key to creating viable human clones that retain the essential qualities we seek." Lisa began studying the room more systematically. The aliens moved like researchers, not like prison guards. Their equipment was sophisticated but seemed designed for compliant subjects. The security measures were minimal, probably because most species they dealt with didn't try to fight back. "What happens to me after you clone me?" she asked. "You will be kept alive and healthy," Keth-7 said. "We may need to create multiple clones, and each iteration helps us understand human genetic structure better. You will be well cared for." Lisa almost laughed. They were planning to keep her as a permanent test subject, and they thought she would just accept that because they promised to feed her regularly. They really didn't understand humans at all. "Show me how the cloning process works," she said. The aliens exchanged looks. Vex-9 seemed pleased that she was showing interest. "The process requires complete genetic mapping while the subject is conscious. We must capture not just DNA, but what you might call the life force. The subject experiences controlled stress during the procedure to activate all genetic potential." Perfect, Lisa thought. They needed her awake and alert during the cloning. That gave her opportunities. Keth-7 led her to another part of the laboratory where a large cylindrical tank stood connected to dozens of cables and tubes. The subject is placed in the biomatrix chamber. Full body scanning captures every cell while stress hormones are at peak levels. The data creates a complete template for reproduction. Lisa examined the chamber carefully. The controls were nearby, protected by what looked like a simple force field. The aliens had grown overconfident after centuries of dealing with species that didn't fight back. Their security systems were designed to keep test subjects from accidentally hurting themselves, not to stop someone from deliberately causing damage. "When do we start?" she asked. Vex-9 looked surprised by her apparent cooperation. "You are willing to participate in the Genesis project?" "I'm curious about your technology," Lisa said, which was true. She was very curious about how to break. "Sure. Besides, you're going to do this whether I cooperate or not, right? Might as well make it easier on everyone." Lisa spent the next several hours touring the laboratory and asking questions about their equipment. The aliens were happy to explain everything, pleased to have a cooperative subject for once. They showed her the genetic analysis computers, the cloning tanks, the monitoring systems, and the emergency protocols. By the time they were ready to begin the cloning process, Lisa had memorized the location of every important system in the facility. She knew which machines controlled life support, which ones handled security, and most importantly, which ones controlled the cloning process itself. As they prepared to place her in the biomatrix chamber, Lisa was already planning how to introduce subtle errors into the genetic scanning process. The aliens thought they were creating a perfect copy of her. Instead, she was going to give them something much more dangerous. Lisa Morgan had survived disasters by adapting to circumstances and finding ways to turn problems into solutions. The aliens had made a critical error by assuming she would react logically to an impossible situation. Instead, she was going to do what humans did best when trapped and threatened. She was going to cause chaos. The biomatrix chamber felt like being inside a giant scanner mixed with an MRI machine. Lisa lay still as thousands of tiny lights moved over her body, mapping every cell and recording every biological function. The process was uncomfortable, but not painful, exactly what she had expected from researchers who needed their subject in good condition. The aliens monitored her vital signs from outside the chamber. Keth-7 called out readings to Vex-9, who supervised the entire procedure. Lisa could hear everything they said through the communication system. Stress hormones elevated to optimal levels, Keth-7 reported. Genetic activity showing maximum expression. All systems recording successfully. Lisa had spent years as a combat medic learning to control her body's responses under pressure. She could slow her heart rate, control her breathing, and even influence her brain chemistry to some degree. The aliens thought they were recording her natural stress responses. Instead, she was carefully manipulating her biological signals. During the most critical scanning phases, Lisa introduced tiny variations in her heart rate and brain activity. The changes were small enough that the aliens didn't notice them, but significant enough to alter the genetic template they were creating. She was essentially sabotaging her own cloning by making the process record false information. Subject: showing unusual neural patterns. One of the monitoring aliens observed. Higher than normal activity in survival response centers. Excellent, Vex-9 replied. This confirms our selection was correct. Her genetic structure is optimized for survival situations, if only they knew, Lisa thought. She was optimizing their equipment to create something they definitely hadn't planned for. The scanning process took 6 hours. Lisa maintained her sabotage throughout, introducing what appeared to be random fluctuations, but were actually carefully calculated disruptions. By the time they were finished, the genetic template contained all of her knowledge and memories, but with critical alterations to her personality inhibitors and emotional control systems. Template extraction complete, Keth-7 announced. Beginning clone generation immediately. Lisa was moved to a recovery area where she could watch the cloning process through a large window. The chamber where her genetic template was being grown was larger than the scanning chamber, filled with a thick blue liquid that glowed softly. Inside, she could see a human shape forming rapidly. Your species develops very quickly compared to others we have studied, Vex-9 explained. Most cloning processes require months or years. Human genetic structure allows for complete development in 12 hours. Lisa watched her copy taking shape. The aliens had no idea what they had created. They were expecting a compliant duplicate who shared her memories but lacked her stubborn streak. Instead, they were about to wake up a version of herself with all of her military training, medical knowledge, and survival instincts, but without the years of social conditioning that taught people to control their violent impulses. "Why don't your other clones work?" she asked, genuinely curious. Keth-7 gestured toward another section of the laboratory where Lisa could see several tanks containing what looked like failed experiments. The clones develop perfectly on a physical level, but they lack drive. They eat when fed, follow simple commands, but show no initiative or desire to continue existing. They simply stop functioning after a few days. What do you think makes humans different? We believe it is your species' irrational attachment to survival, Vex-9 said. Other species accept death as a natural conclusion. Humans fight against it even when continuation is impossible. This trait appears to be essential for maintaining life force in clones. Lisa nodded, but privately she was thinking about something else. The aliens understood human biology, but they didn't understand human psychology at all. They were expecting her clone to have the same cooperative attitude she had been showing. They had no concept of what an uncontrolled human could do in a hostile environment. The clone development accelerated as they watched. Within 8 hours, the figure in the tank was fully formed and beginning to show signs of brain activity. Lisa could see readouts indicating that her copy was developing memories and consciousness. Remarkable, Keth-7 said. All indicators show successful integration of genetic template. Brain activity patterns match the original subject. This may be our first successful human clone. At hour 10, the clone's eyes opened inside the tank. Lisa felt a strange chill watching another version of herself looking around with confusion and growing anger. Even through the growing medium, she could see that her copy was not happy about the situation. Beginning awakening procedure. Vex 9 announced. The blue liquid drained from the tank and the clone began breathing air. Medical scanners confirmed that all of her biological systems were functioning perfectly. The chamber opened with a soft hiss, and the clone sat up slowly, looking around the laboratory with eyes that Lisa recognized as her own. Greetings, Vex 9 said to the clone. You are Template 001, first successful human clone in our Genesis project. Please remain calm while we complete your initial evaluation. The clone looked at Vex 9 for a long moment. Then she looked through the window at Lisa. Their eyes met, and Lisa saw recognition there, along with something else. Pure, concentrated, fury. Where am I? The clone asked in Lisa's voice. You are aboard our research facility, Keth 7 explained. You have been created to help us understand human genetic. The clone moved faster than any of the aliens expected. Lisa's combat training and medical knowledge had been perfectly transferred, but without the social conditioning that normally prevented people from acting on their most violent impulses when threatened. Template 001 grabbed the nearest piece of medical equipment and smashed it into the control panel that regulated her tank. Sparks flew, and alarms began to sound throughout the laboratory. Restraint protocols, Vex 9 shouted, but the clone was already moving. Lisa watched in fascination as her copy systematically destroyed everything within reach. Template 001 knew exactly which machines were important and which ones were just decoration. She was targeting the laboratory's critical systems with surgical precision. The aliens tried to activate their emergency restraint fields, but Template 001 had inherited Lisa's knowledge of the laboratory's layout. She disabled the restraint controls before they could capture her, then began working her way through the room like a natural disaster with medical training. This is not the behavior pattern we observed in the original subject, Keth 7 said in panic. Lisa almost felt sorry for them. They had created exactly what they asked for, a human with perfect survival instincts and complete determination to escape captivity. They just hadn't realized what that would look like in practice. Template 001 broke through the laboratory's security door using a piece of equipment as a battering ram. The alarms got louder as she disappeared into the corridors beyond, and Lisa could hear the sounds of more destruction echoing through the facility. Subject Template 001 has breached containment, came an announcement over the facility's communication system. All personnel implement emergency lockdown procedures immediately. Vex 9 looked at Lisa with something that might have been accusation. Your clone is not behaving according to predicted parameters. Lisa shrugged. You said you wanted the human survival instinct. That's what it looks like when you don't try to control it. In the distance, they could hear more alarms and the sounds of equipment being destroyed. Template 001 was loose in the facility, and she had inherited all of Lisa's knowledge about the aliens' technology, along with an uncontrolled determination to escape. The first copy was free, and the laboratory was learning what happened when you gave someone Lisa's abilities, without her restraint. The facility shook as another explosion echoed through the corridors. Template 001 had been loose for only 30 minutes, but the damage reports were getting worse by the minute. Lisa watched the chaos through the laboratory's monitoring screens, as her clone systematically destroyed everything that looked important. Environmental systems damaged in Section 7, came a panicked voice over the communication system. Life support failing in Research Bay 4. Emergency power activated in the main corridor. Vex 9 stared at the displays in disbelief. How does she know which systems to target? The original subject showed no knowledge of our technology. Lisa had been watching her copy's progress with professional interest. Template 001 was using her inherited medical knowledge in reverse, identifying vital systems the same way a medic would identify vital organs in a patient. Then she was attacking those systems with the tactical thinking of someone trained to disable enemy equipment. Maybe you should have asked me more about my background, Lisa said calmly. Keth 7 was frantically working at a control station, trying to restore the damaged systems. We must create additional clones immediately, One subject cannot continue to cause this level of destruction. We can overwhelm her with numbers. That's a bad idea, Lisa warned, but Vex 9 was already giving orders. Begin emergency cloning procedure. Create templates 002 through 005 simultaneously. Full acceleration protocols. Lisa tried to protest, but the aliens weren't listening anymore. They were in crisis mode, reacting instead of thinking. They activated 4 cloning chambers at once and began the rapid development process that would create 4 more copies of Lisa in just 2 hours instead of the normal 12. While the new clones were developing, Template 001 continued her rampage through the facility. She had found the main power distribution center and was methodically shutting down non-essential systems while leaving life support intact. It was exactly what Lisa would have done: disable the enemy's capabilities without killing everyone. In the process, she's not trying to destroy the facility, Lisa observed. She's trying to take control of it. Impossible, Vex 9 said. Human subjects do not have the knowledge required to operate our technology. You gave her my memories, Lisa pointed out. I've been studying your equipment for hours. I know how most of it works. On the screens, they could see Template 001 had reached the communication center. Instead of destroying it, she was trying to access the controls. Lisa realized her clone was attempting to contact Earth, just as she would have done in the same situation. The first emergency clone, Template 02, completed development ahead of schedule. As soon as the tank opened, the new copy looked around the laboratory with the same expression of fury that Template 01 had shown, but this time, the aliens were ready with restraint fields. Remain calm, Keth 7 said to the new clone. You will be processed and integrated according to standard protocols. Template 002 looked at him for exactly 3 seconds. Then she smiled, in a way that made Lisa's blood run cold. It was the smile she had learned to wear right before doing something that would get her in trouble, but would definitely solve the immediate problem. The clone broke free of the restraint field using a technique Lisa had learned in Navy combat training. She grabbed Keth 7's scanning device and used it to short-circuit the control systems for all 4 remaining cloning tanks. No! Vex 9 shouted, but it was too late. Templates 003, 004, and 005 emerged from their tanks simultaneously, all of them conscious and angry. Lisa watched in horrified fascination as 4 copies of herself began coordinating without any verbal communication. They moved like a military unit that had been training together for years. How are they working together so efficiently? Vex 9 demanded. They have the same memories and training, Lisa explained. They know how each other thinks because they all think the same way I do. The 4 new clones systematically disabled every security system in the laboratory within minutes. Then Template 002 began working on the door controls, while Templates 003 and 004 gathered equipment that could be used as weapons. Template 005 started downloading data from the research computers. They're coordinating like a special forces team, Lisa said with genuine admiration. You didn't just clone my body. You cloned 12 years of military training and medical expertise. The laboratory door exploded inward as Template 001 returned with improvised explosives she had made from cleaning, chemicals, and medical supplies. She had also acquired what looked like alien weapons taken from security stations throughout the facility. All 5 clones looked at each other for a moment. Then they looked at the aliens, then at Lisa behind the containment barrier. Without any discussion, Templates 002 and 003 began working on freeing Lisa, while Templates 001, 004, and 005 formed a defensive perimeter around the laboratory. Fascinating, Lisa murmured. I'm watching my own tactical thinking from the outside. The aliens tried to activate their emergency protocols, but the clones had already disabled most of the facility's defensive systems. Vex 9 managed to reach one final control panel and activated what appeared to be the facility's self-destruct sequence. If we cannot control the situation, we will preserve our research data and eliminate the threat, he announced. Template 001 looked at the self-destruct display and laughed. It was Lisa's laugh, but with an edge of violence that made the alien step backward. You really don't understand humans at all, Template 001 said. She began typing rapidly on the self-destruct control panel. "What is she doing?" Keth7 asked. In panic, Lisa was watching her clones work with professional interest. "She's reprogramming your self-destruct system. Instead of destroying the facility, it's going to target your research data and weapon systems while leaving everything else intact." "Impossible. She cannot understand our programming language. Medical equipment uses similar logical structures across different technologies," Lisa explained. "If you understand how one complex system works, you can figure out others. Plus, you've been explaining everything to me for hours." Template 002 successfully freed Lisa from her containment area. As soon as she was mobile, Lisa found herself surrounded by 5 copies of herself, all looking at her expectantly. "What's the plan?" Template 003 asked. Lisa looked around the laboratory at the cowering aliens and the disabled security systems. Her clones had taken control of the entire facility in less than 2 hours. They were waiting for orders from the original, treating her as their commanding officer. "First, we make sure no one gets hurt," Lisa said. "Then we figure out how to get everyone home safely." "Including them?" Template 005 asked, gesturing toward the aliens. Lisa looked at Vex-9 and Keth-7, who were huddled together near the ruined cloning equipment. They looked terrified but not hostile. They were researchers who had made a serious mistake, not soldiers or conquerors. "Yes," Lisa said, "including them. They need to understand why this was a bad idea, but they don't need to die for it." Template 01 finished reprogramming the self-destruct system. Their research data is being deleted, but the life support systems are secure. We have complete control of the facility now. Lisa nodded. "Good work. Now let's figure out how to turn this disaster into something positive." The aliens stared at her in confusion. They had expected violence and destruction, but instead they were seeing something they had never encountered before. Humans who chose cooperation over domination, even when they held all the advantages. Lisa stood in the center of the laboratory surrounded by 5 copies of herself, looking at the aliens who had started this whole situation. Vex-9 and Keth-7 sat on the floor near the destroyed cloning equipment, staring at the humans who had taken control of their facility in less than 3 hours. "So," Lisa said to the aliens, "let's talk about what happens next." Template 001 was monitoring the facility's communication systems. "I've made contact with Earth. The Coast Guard is tracking our location based on the emergency beacon from the Ocean Pioneer. They'll be here in 6 hours. I've secured all the alien prisoners," Template 02 reported. There were 18 Zephyrians total aboard the facility, all of them now confined to safe areas under guard. No injuries on either side. Lisa was impressed by how efficiently her copies had handled the situation. They had used exactly the right amount of force to control the facility without causing unnecessary harm. It was what she would have done, but seeing it from the outside gave her a new perspective on her own abilities. "Why are you helping us?" Vex-9 asked. "We abducted you. We attempted to clone you without permission. Your species' typical response to such treatment would be revenge." Lisa sat down across from the alien scientist. "Because revenge doesn't solve the problem. You told me your species is dying because you've lost the ability to feel emotions and reproduce naturally. Hurting you won't fix that." Template 003 had been studying the aliens' research data before it was deleted. Their genetic modifications eliminated aggression along with other emotions. They literally cannot understand why we're not trying to hurt them. "That's part of your problem," Lisa said to Vex-9. "You've been trying to steal human traits instead of understanding them. You can't just copy determination and survival instincts. Those things come from our experiences, our choices, and our connections to other people." Keth-7 looked confused. "But genetic templates should transfer all necessary information. Our cloning process has worked successfully on thousands of other species. Because other species probably don't fight back when you take them," Template 004 observed. "Lisa sabotaged the cloning process. We're not perfect copies. We're amplified versions of human stubbornness with all the safety controls removed." Lisa nodded. "I introduced errors into the genetic scanning deliberately. I gave you copies of myself without the social conditioning that teaches people to control their aggressive impulses." The aliens looked at each other in what Lisa was beginning to recognize as their version of shock. "You intentionally corrupted the Genesis project?" "I turned it into something that would help me escape," Lisa corrected. "But now that we're all here, maybe we can find a better solution to your actual problem." Over the next 2 hours, Lisa and her clones worked with the Zephyrians to understand their situation more completely. The aliens had been genetically modifying themselves for thousands of years, eliminating traits they considered primitive or inefficient. They had achieved perfect logic, unlimited lifespans, and advanced technology, but they had lost the ability to feel joy, love, fear, or anger. "We exist, but we do not live," Vex 9 explained. "We continue our research because it is logical to do so, but we have no desire to continue. Our species produces no new generations. We simply maintain ourselves until we choose to stop." "And you thought cloning humans would give you back what you lost?" Template 005 asked. "We hope to isolate the genetic basis for emotional response and survival drive," Keth 7 said. "Then we could modify ourselves to restore those traits while maintaining our other improvements." Lisa shook her head. "That's not how it works. You can't just add emotions back into your genetics like installing software. The things that make humans fight to survive come from millions of years of evolution, plus individual experiences and relationships. Then our species is doomed," Vex 9 said flatly. "Maybe not," Lisa said slowly. "But you need to try a completely different approach." Lisa spent the remaining time before the Coast Guard arrived explaining human social structures, family relationships, and the ways that emotions developed through personal connections rather than genetic programming. The aliens listened with what appeared to be genuine interest. "You would need to learn to feel again gradually," Template 001 explained, "like children do, through experiences and relationships with others. Some of your people could work with humans as partners," Template 002 suggested, "not as test subjects but as teachers. Learn how we think and feel by spending time with us." The sound of helicopters approaching interrupted their discussion. Lisa looked out the laboratory windows and could see Coast Guard rescue aircraft approaching the alien facility, which was still floating on the surface of the ocean. "What do we tell them?" Template 003 asked. Lisa had been thinking about that question for the past hour. "We tell them the truth. First contact with an alien species that needs our help. But we do it carefully, with full diplomatic protocols." "Your government will want to study us," Vex 9 said nervously. "Probably," Lisa admitted. "But as partners in a cultural exchange program, not as prisoners or test subjects. You have technology we could benefit from, and we have emotional and social knowledge you need to survive as a species." Template 004 was monitoring the approaching aircraft. "They're requesting permission to board. Multiple agencies represented including scientific and military personnel." Lisa looked at her clones, then at the aliens. "This is the moment where everything changes for both of our species. Are we ready to do this right?" The Zephyrians looked at each other, then back at Lisa. "We will follow your guidance," Vex 9 said. "Your species has already demonstrated capabilities we did not anticipate." Lisa opened the communication channel to the Coast Guard aircraft. "This is Dr. Lisa Morgan aboard an alien research facility, requesting diplomatic contact protocols for first contact situation. We have peaceful aliens requesting assistance and cooperation." The response came back immediately. "Dr. Morgan, this is Admiral Patricia Hayes, Joint Chiefs of Staff. We're prepared for full diplomatic contact. Are you and your team safe?" Lisa looked around at her 5 copies, all of whom were monitoring different aspects of the facility and the approaching aircraft with professional competence. "We're safe, and we have the situation under control. Requesting permission to act as initial liaison between human and Zephyrian representatives." "Permission granted. We're looking forward to your report, Dr. Morgan." As the Coast Guard began docking procedures with the alien facility, Lisa realized that what had started as an abduction and failed cloning experiment had turned into humanity's first diplomatic contact with another species. The aliens had tried to steal human determination and survival instincts, but instead, They had learned that those traits couldn't be copied or controlled. Template 001 approached Lisa as they prepared to meet with the human diplomatic team. What happens to us now? Lisa looked at her clones, each of whom had developed slightly different personalities over the past few hours, despite sharing the same memories. I think you get to decide that for yourselves. You're not copies anymore. You're individuals. We'd like to stay and work as cultural liaisons, Template 02 said. Help the Zephyrians learn how to reconnect with emotions and social relationships. Lisa smiled. It was exactly what she would have chosen to do. That sounds like a perfect job for people with our particular set of skills. As the first human diplomats boarded the alien facility, Lisa Morgan realized that sometimes the best way to solve an impossible situation was to refuse to accept that it was impossible in the first place. The aliens had learned that human stubbornness was not something that could be bottled or controlled. It was something that had to be earned through choice, experience, and the determination to keep trying even when logic said to give up.